Chocolate chip ice cream.
White House Senior Living, where residents feel like presidents.
I got to get in there while there's still openings. I mean, it might be filling up pretty quick.
Maybe, I don't know.
So what do they put this guy on to trot him out there? Because half the time he seems like he's completely dead and mumbling incoherently, but other times he's just screaming and yelling, ranting at Trump and fascism and racism and everything else. There seems to be two, either the drugged up Biden or the dementia Biden.
Time of day. He's probably sundowners.
Oh, okay. All right. He's got sundowners. Okay, I got that.
All right, I want to welcome our guest really quickly. We've got a short period with him, Jason Rantz, who wrote a powerful book. I'll use powerful because it's hard to read. It's literally a chronology about everything that is going wrong right now. Very well detailed. What's killing America? Thank you for coming, though, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I didn't find it hard because I'm a dark person. Hunley, anything's dark to Hunley. I mean, to me, I was like, page after page going, bring it on, Jason, bring it on. Let's go. He divides it up into different chapters to make it even more delectable. But I really enjoyed it, Jason. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was an interesting bit of research that I had to do for this book. I mean, obviously the intent is to inspire people to get to a place of change, but the more I was talking to, frankly, conservatives, even conservatives just don't realize the extent of the damage that's been done to cities. And if you don't understand reality and you don't understand how it actually happens, the language that's used to manipulate folks to say yes to some just really crazy policies, we're just never going to win these cities back.
I had one question, though, before Mark gets a hold of you and they get into the drug trek. You open pretty early in the book talking about your time going undercover with Antifa. And I wanted to get a comment from you about your thoughts on two-party consent laws and how it's actually destroying undercover reporting.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because I have conflicting positions here. While I certainly understand that the ability to go undercover and truly capture what's going on is obviously very important, but it's also something that can be abused very easily, especially since even with some folks who do go undercover and do that kind of reporting, I don't always like the way that they're selectively editing some of the content. And so I kind of see it both ways. I think, look, at the end of the day, if you're doing this all out in public, we have absolutely every right to record whatever it is we can. I think that's important to do. And especially given the fact that a lot of this stuff is being done out in the open. They're not necessarily doing it behind closed doors. So I at the end of the day, I have conflicting positions, mostly because if the report, I think, is done in a positive way and in an ethical way, obviously I like it. The problem is I don't know what can be done when some people do it in the not so ethical way. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people get taken advantage of out there who are, watching some of the coverage and not really getting the full story.
Interesting. The LA Times and other major publications won't do that type of journalism any longer, which used to be called gonzo journalism. And I've done a lot of it as a reporter years ago. It's been eliminated by mainstream media, as you're well aware. And I think it's because they fear for their own exposure as frauds that they are. I mean, if you did this in the editorial room of the New York Times, where the editor, who used to be at the LA Times, now at the New York Times, was recorded simply saying when they recorded him saying when Trump was elected, we have to take the gloves off and editorial ethics has to go out the window. I think they fear being recorded. That's why they've done away with that type of journalism.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that kind of fear. I also think at the end of the day, even if it were embraced a little bit more by some mainstream media outlets, I still don't think they would do it. I mean, part of the reason why I got so involved specifically in this issue was because no one else was doing it. And in the first chapter of the book that you're referencing, I take us through one particular rally in March that I participated in. And I remember very distinctly, as it was starting, all the TV people who were there they just stopped. They stayed at the starting bit of the march, and they didn't follow. And I remember thinking, well, how are they covering this if they're not actually going to see what these people are doing? They're not going to film it. They're not going to record it from an audio perspective even. They just don't understand, which means the person at home has no idea truly what's going on.
Well, let me ask something, which I remembered from back then, not from your reporting, but All Cops Are Bastards, ACAB, Jason, is that
Yep.
Okay. Did you hear that they put that as the code on the Starbucks bathroom? I remember somebody reporting at the time that they had asked the manager to change the code to ACAB on the Starbucks bathroom near there, but it could have been a chopped rumor.
I don't remember that specifically.
Okay.
It wouldn't shock me because the funny thing is you've got all of these Antifa lunatics who live with their parents in nicer neighborhoods around the area, and a lot of them actually work as baristas. And so I imagine there was probably some Starbucks barista who was one of the members of the Antifa groups, and maybe they did this. Certainly, I don't think anyone intentionally did this on the Starbucks side of things that were taken advantage of.
Well, tell us when Chop became Chaz or Chaz became Chop. I forget which came first now. It's been, maybe you could bring us back in time, in the time machine, the Antifa time machine, and take us where you entered the Chop Chaz universe.
It's funny because from the beginning, there had always been a bunch of different names. And I also get confused of like, wait, which one came first?
I know.
They both kind of happened at the same time, but there was one group that was more prominently calling it Chop, and then it went more prominently to Chaz, and then there were the infighting about what else can we call it. At the end of the day, it was just a chaotic zone of despair. I mean, I know that a lot of folks wanted to go into, the zone in the middle of a Tuesday for CNN and ABC News and claim it's like a music festival, but they went to their hotels the second that they got off the air, right? They didn't spend any time there overnight. They didn't even stay until the sun went down. So they didn't see the truth of what was happening there. And it was, I remember distinctly, I write about this, like, I'm there, I'm witnessing all these things that are happening, lots of vandalism, lots of fighting, lots of just very dangerous rhetoric. And a lot of it I had on film. And of course I was on Fox News and I was covering it mostly for Tucker. And every single time I got off the air, I would inevitably get either emails or from text messages from people, tweets, telling me I was making it all up. I'm like, I don't do CGI. I mean, I have the video. I don't know what else it is we have to do to get it through to you that this is clearly dangerous and is going to end with some significant bloodshed. And then, of course, that's precisely what happened. And it wasn't just about the deaths of Black boys, all in the names of Black Lives Matter, but it was also an attempted rape of someone who was deaf. It was about the attempted arson of a business nearby. This was really, really chaotic. And folks, I think in part because they're blinded by their own ideology, just refuse to acknowledge the truth. And unfortunately, even with local media, they weren't really covering what was going on the way that I was and the way that a few others were outside of this market.
Is it possible that's
I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, is it possible that's by design? And as an example, all the violence in Chicago has got grocery stores to leave the downtown area. Chicago mayor's solution is state-run grocery stores. So in a way, this could be seen as a perfect path into getting communism. Your thoughts?
So I don't think it's by design in that sense. I think the reaction is by design, meaning you've got folks who ideologically hold these views about police, about crime, about the criminal justice system, about pretty much every issue. And because they see things solely through that lens, they're either blinded by the reality of what's going on, and I mean that literally, like there is a delusion going on where they've convinced themselves that all of this stuff that we're seeing just isn't happening. But more often, I think it's this other group of people which basically say there's going to be some short-term pain for long-term gain. They all knew that the chaos from CHOP was real and it would probably escalate. I don't think they immediately thought there were going to be murders, but I certainly know that they thought there was going to be vandalism and some at least low-level assaults. But to them, it was about a bigger ideal, proving that you don't truly need police in order to be safe and have some semblance of order. You got to remember also at the time, President Trump was saying, I would go in and I would destroy this. I would happily give you the national federal officers to go in and clear it up. And there was jockeying. They didn't want Donald Trump to be on the right side of an issue. And so it only allowed local lawmakers like our mayor at the time to really dig in and defend what was happening. And obviously one particular side was right, and it certainly wasn't the progressives here.
Well, the mayor, who famously called it the summer of love, it was actually more like Altamont. But what happened to her? Did she disappear into a nonprofit, Jason, or?
So I don't know what she's doing right now.
Yeah, she kind of disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine she's doing some work on some board somewhere, and it just hasn't really been made public in any meaningful way. The truth is, I kind of just forgot about her, and that's really what her tenure as mayor here was. It was someone who, on paper, looked like she could do the job. She took over after a Democrat, Ed Murray, before her, had to leave because of some significant allegations and sex scandals.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so
I remember that. I remember that.
She was seen as the adult who could take things over, and certainly she had a good resume. There's no doubt, but she surrounded herself by a lot of people who just did not know how to run city government, and they were so terrified of the activists on the ground, and that's why you saw her defend CHOP the way she did. Is certainly at the beginning was she was feeling a lot of this pressure coming from the progressives. She certainly wanted to continue to be mayor. She wanted a second term, so she felt like she had to placate those groups. And honestly, she did. From a political standpoint in Seattle, she probably did. But it ended up costing her her entire political career.
I mean, you talk about in the book brilliantly how it kind of migrates down from British Vancouver, from Vancouver, Canadian Vancouver, down the West Coast. This attitude and this laissez-faire drug use. I mean, there's now vending machines, I think, in Vancouver that have the merchandise that's being given away on the street. That was a number of years ago that vending machines started happening.
It's here in the United States now, those vending machines.
Oh, they are? Okay, that's why I was going with that question. I people didn't believe me when I said there were vending machines up in Vancouver that dispensed that material, but you're saying it's now in Oregon and Washington State, or?
So you're seeing certain kinds of vending machines. A lot of it puts out Narcan. Some of it puts out so-called harm reduction devices, materials, and that's on my chapter on drugs. I spend a lot of time on harm reduction.
Yeah, I love that harm reduction chapter. That's worth the price of admission. But go on.
Thank you very much. Yeah. The reason why I spend so much time on it is because the way that the drug crisis has unfolded is directly attributable to harm reduction.
Explain what harm reduction is to regular people at home.
Precisely, because this is what I mean when we have to understand the language that the left uses. Here's how they will tell you what harm reduction is. It is a way to mitigate the risks associated with substance use disorders, to keep them alive, keep the addict alive, so we can get them treatment and ultimately get them on the right path. Now, just based on that explanation, I would back that. That sounds like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Here's what it actually means. Enabling drug users by giving them the tools that they need, the drug paraphernalia that they need to continue to use, while not doing a damn thing about getting them treatment. Because the second that you say you need treatment, the second you try to push them there, it's stigmatizing their addiction, and you're not allowed to do that.
Right. So also the facility to have harm reduction, which you discussed.
Yeah, I mean,
the shooting galleries or the harm reduction centers. Or remember, what was the first phrase they came up with?
So in Philadelphia, they called it a safe consumption site, and then a community engagement hub. I mean, you've got all of these different names for basically the same thing: a space where you are supervised by a medical professional as you consume your drug of choice. Now, early on, especially when we were talking about Vancouver, that was heroin. Yeah. And heroin obviously now is no longer the drug of choice. It's still out there, but it's really fentanyl and then meth that's being used the most. And that's why you're not really hearing heroin injection sites anymore. And even safe consumption sites, they've sort of, as a concept, have gone away for a couple of reasons beyond just, heroin is not the drug of choice anymore. Number one, they're already here. We're seeing a lot of them both on a underground level, where activists are basically volunteering their time to allow for this, or they're kind of out in the open. You look in New York, you look in San Francisco, they're not really hiding a lot of what it is they're doing. And it was always a misnomer. They're calling it a safe consumption site. Yeah, if you need a public health official to ensure you don't die from the behavior, then it's not safe. You've made it safer, I suppose, but you've not actually made it safe. And of course, the only way something like that could work is if you had a dozen of them in every community and didn't allow anyone to consume outside of that one area, right? So otherwise, you're inevitably going to lead to more overdose deaths, because not everyone who's desperate for their next fix is going to get on a bus, get down to the heroin injection site or wherever it is they're going, and then use safely.
Well, you pointed out one of the really inside in the weeds things that got my attention was that you pointed out that they would go into the injection sites, get the works, and leave, because nobody, and I know this on my own, nobody likes to be Narcaned. So they would take their material and leave and go to an old standard shooting gallery, Jason. That I loved in your book. That was brilliantly inside the game.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. All you have to do is observe the way that addicts act and just talk to them and talk to the people who are out on the streets legitimately trying to help. And you see the same kind of behaviors. You're absolutely right that folks don't want Narcan, or they get to a point where they are intentionally getting Narcan because they know that that's the highest of the high that they can get, short of actually dying from that overdose. Wow. And that's what makes it so incredibly tragic. And to be clear, we're at the point where Narcan, in many instances, is not working. At least not the first.
That was another great thing you pointed out. You're saying a lot of people have to be double Narcaned, and that doesn't even work anymore with fentanyl. Is that? Yeah,
well, and it's because the fentanyl itself is now being laced with other drugs that are not responding very well to
Trank.
The Narcan. Yeah,
Trank part of that.
Trank is part of that. Trank, or the zombie drug. It's caused. I talked to, not too long ago for my radio show, I talked to someone who is a social worker who works in the community, who is experiencing people who are so drugged out because of Trank, they are losing pieces of their body like ears and toes, and they don't even realize it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, again, this harm reduction model, one of the things they're opposed to, which worked, which you don't get into in the book. You do get into incarceration in the book, and you do get into people who have gotten clean and sober through incarceration. You could have a whole chapter on that. And I could tell you, I know plenty of friends of mine who, if they weren't for incarceration, would be dead now. And that's including Robert Downey Jr., who's an old friend. So, I mean, there's plenty of anecdotal evidence about incarceration working as a type of recovery method. And there's meetings inside the prison. Yeah, no, I know. Right. It's more than anecdotal.
We have data. We know precisely what works. And that's the thing that's so frustrating here is, they keep talking about harm reduction. I'd love to see the data that they're pretending exists that gets people clean. Go on. Try to get the data from drug courts about their efficiency. Yeah, it just doesn't work the way that they originally intended. I mean, they told us the way that they pitched this whole idea was that it would get people treatment. And then they started to switch it around and said, well, it's keeping people alive. Now, there's data to suggest that yes, if you are in front of a medical professional when you're overdosing, you have a higher chance of surviving that. Thank you. That's very helpful. However, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to get that person clean and sober so that they're no longer addicted to that drug that will ultimately kill them.
Right, which is what I was getting at, because they seem to, or at least it's not in your book, and I've never heard it from them, is involvement of 12-step programs like Narcotics Anonymous, that it's very, very effective a program in dealing with this. There's no mention of the left, and it's because they believe these are God-based or spiritually based programs. And yet the recent study out of UCLA talks about a 90% success rate with 12-step programs. They ignore this entire planet of meetings around the world where most people on the earth that I know go and deal with these things, whether it's OA, NA, GA, CA, whatever it is. That's apparently oblivious to these cats.
Well, I think you correctly cited why. There's two real reasons. Number one is 100% it's the faith issue. I mean, I know individual cities around the country, including here in Seattle, are run by folks who want nothing to do with like Seattle's Union Gospel Mission because of the whole gospel.
Same here, same in downtown LA.
Yeah,
same. Yeah.
But the other reason why is they legitimately will not consider anything that is not harm reduction. That is part of both a local strategy and a national strategy. And frankly, it's happening in red counties and red cities and red states, and people don't even realize it because, again, the way it's pitched to people isn't the reality of how it's actually working. And so, and I get into it in the book, like there are programs that are very similar, at least in notion, to 12 steps, which is basically you're in a community with people who care about you, people have your back, people will make sure that you're staying on the right path, and you're being held accountable. When you include that, when you have a carrot and stick approach to tackling this issue, the data shows that it does work. Not for everyone, but for a huge number
of people, Jason, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, again, I have got specific examples in the book, but I mean, the data shows that you cannot completely take out the criminal justice system. When you do that, you get what we currently have, which is record high deaths associated with fentanyl, meth, and heroin.
On that point, just maybe a side point, but you brought up a salient point, I think, with minorities. You said that all this, I would say, legalization of crime, because it feels that way, or pro-crime measures are because all crime leads into a, quote, racist result, according to their statements. However, all of this harm reductionist stuff leads to more people of minority race dying. Wouldn't that be seen as a racist result? Is this not an interesting quandary?
Yeah. So, and it's part of something that drives me nuts. And this was one wonderful part about writing a book. You really get to focus on the stuff that drives you mad. It's something called the disproportionality argument, which gets used by folks on the progressive side all the time. They will simply look at the data and make their own interpretation based upon their ideological position. So they will look at, in the criminal justice system, Black people or Latinos or whatever are disproportionately impacted by this particular law. Then they will tell you, because there's a disproportionate impact based upon their population, that it shows that there's racism. No, it doesn't.
That's equity, right?
Yeah. It doesn't show that at all. All it does is tell you is that here's how many people relevant to the demographic, to the population number, are committing this crime and are getting caught at least. So if you're telling me that that's racist, fine. The people who are disproportionately impacted by the culture of lawlessness, by the culture of drugs, are Black and Latino. So then your policy must be racist if I'm using your silly logic. And of course, the policy itself isn't racist because it impacts everyone regardless of their race. But this is the argument that they use for everything else. But for this, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, well, we're not going to make that point.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if, just as a side note, who's in jail anymore? I mean, are there people, I'm curious as to what percentage of the jails are filled, or the prisons in Washington State or California. I haven't seen any stats lately.
So it takes a lot at this point to get in jail.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to stay in jail.
Right.
It takes a lot. I mean, we're at the point where we're seeing in Washington in particular, but it's happening all across the country. There is an effort to bring people out of jail, put them into restorative justice programs, put them onto, alternatives, because there's a belief on the far left that jail does not work to rehabilitate. Now, I actually agree that for some people, jail does not rehabilitate them. That's not always the point. Sometimes the point, and oftentimes the point, is not just about them, it's about everybody. And so when that person who's a prolific offender who continues to do whatever the crime is, when they're in jail, it means they're not creating more victims. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for them, if it doesn't, okay. I mean, I prefer that it would, and I think we have to do a better job of helping people once they are in jail. But I'm more concerned about the potential victims, not just the victims that have already occurred, but the victims that will become victims because we've kept that person out of jail.
Right.
Well, Jason, thank you so much. I know that you've got a radio show of your own that you got to get to, and thank you for giving us this time, man.
Jason, thank you. We got to have you come back, because I know you only have these little 25-minute windows because of our overlap. So maybe we can have you back again for another 25,
Absolutely.
30-minute segment.
I love talking about this, and I
It's a
appreciate
great book. I mean, I urge everyone, we'll put a link to it down in the description.
Mhm.
All of our listeners and followers should definitely pick this up and follow Jason Rantz. I don't know if you can get his radio show on the air, but definitely follow him through the book.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
so much.
Jason. Thank you so much.
Talk to All right.
That was interesting. Wow. It's just people just passing through the show. I like that. It's like guys just come, passing through, stops by and drops the book on us.
Hey, super happy to have him now. Okay, first story. We've got to get into it. The chat was lit up.
About
early
what?
on.
What? What about him? What about Jason? Okay.
Gonzalo Lira.
Oh, well, we knew that was going to happen as soon as they put him in jail. I mean, this is not only is it a war crime, it's a war crime against the Biden administration because he is a Californian, Gonzalo Lira, and they should sue the Biden administrations for crimes against humanity because they didn't lift a finger to get this guy out. And that, I think, is enough to be added to the already long list of impeachable crimes of the Biden administration, and him being the commander in chief could have gotten this guy out with one phone call. This is an American citizen. He let him die in prison under the Zelensky regime. You have to add this to the bill of his crimes, that being Joe Biden, because this is inexplicable and unacceptable.
I agree, and of course, it's all for naught anyway. Supplies have stopped.
Like we didn't see this. Like we didn't see this coming. Turn out the lights. The party's over. To quote Dandy Don Meredith. I mean, this thing is coming to an abrupt end. Now switching to the Houthis, another B-level sub-franchise of the major league team. The Houthis now in my recommended film of the week, which is Wag the Dog, which I watched last week, which still holds up wonderfully. And I forgot that Dennis Leary was in there, and Willie Nelson. Obviously, we talked about that in the Willie Nelson. I found my hat, by the way. It was in storage. Willie Nelson, the family. So I wanted to wear the hat because, oh yeah, this is my film pick. Watch Wag the Dog because that's what Biden's doing here. Trying to get his son off the front page, trying to get Ukraine off the front page, trying to get a lot of stuff off the front page. But this attack on Hootie and the Blowfish, which I thought was a great band, now being missile attacked by Biden. I don't know what his problem is with Hootie and the Blowfish, but I guess they were doing something in the Red Sea that was inappropriate.
Very interesting, though, that he's actually picking up slack and fury from the left, which shows a degree of desperation that it's like, obviously he's going to piss off Republicans all day, but it's like, okay, right now he's in so much trouble.
His middle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, because it started out with a couple of guys like Max Blumenthal going against him and some other people like on the far left. And now it's expanded, of people who are going against Biden because of the Palestinian situation. And now the anti-war left is getting it together. Right, Eric?
Yeah, it's really surprising on that. And okay, so I'm going to change gears really quickly, and I want it early in the show because a lot of people want to know this. Also in the chat, did you see that Rob Reiner named the shooters?
Well, you told me. I didn't see it, or I guess it's audio. I didn't see anything. I just saw audio that you mentioned of the shooters.
Okay.
Who sounds like an all-star team from the James Files anti-Castro Cuban mob did it all-star team with Charles Nicoletti, who I didn't know was Charles the typewriter.
Charles the typewriter.
I never heard that.
It's a good name.
But what this was not as far-fetched as I thought would happen. It's a combination of people who are anti-Castro Cubans and the mob is who Rob Reiner was told to say were the shooters from his CIA handlers, which, to his credit, he makes no attempt, Rob Reiner, to hide that the CIA were, his consultants on this project, the people who actually killed the president, including John Brennan, including Michael, what's his face, who used to be on with Charlie Rose, Michael with an M, and the former CIA director. These were his consultants on the show, pointing him in the right direction.
Yeah, or some direction. No, but remember, it's rogue elements, though.
Rogue
Yeah.
elements, not the
Rogue
entire
element.
group.
But I could give you a shorthand to what he said.
Go ahead.
It was everybody but LBJ.
Right. Yeah. There's no mention, from what I understand, for people who have listened to the podcast, who got sucked in. He copies a lot of stuff we do, except for one 600-pound gorilla, which is LBJ. And I mean, he touches on all the other stuff, but this is bait and switch. This is moving the goalpost. This is what's known, and I try to explain this to people, known as a limited hangout, where you admit that the goalposts have moved by people investigating this stuff, like Jim DiEugenio and Paul Blau and some of the other people that we've had on the show. So they concede that. Then they begin to say, as Rob Reiner said, that he believed that Oswald was involved. He just wasn't one of the shooters. So they then say that Oswald was not the lone assassin. He was one of the assassins. Well, that goalpost started moving about 5-10 years ago down to the other side. And Rob Reiner is now extending that goalpost by literally saying in an interview that I heard him give off this on another platform, that he believed that Oswald literally opened the door to the shooters to come on in, according to me. Pardon me. Come on in.
After
come
you.
On in. Welcome to the sixth floor. You guys know where the things are. That's Mac Wallace. So you leave your fingerprints there, and the Indio, El Indio, the Indian, and Dave Morales, or whoever the shooters were. This is not the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to engulf Oswald as part of a bigger plot and to move it down the line back towards the mob and elements of anti-Castro Cubans did the shooting. I could have told you that and did tell you that from day one.
Well, to his credit, he brought on like DiEugenio and interviews and others. So it's a nice way of co-opting the reputation into the podcast, the Morleys and whatnot of the world.
And then it's edited. And then, I mean, you're talking about a guy, I know this sounds impossible, but it was written by a guy from the Washington Post, the entire script that Rob Reiner is reading into a microphone. A script? Yes, a script. He's reading a script. And I know this sounds crazy, but when I think of the Kennedy assassination, the first name that pops into my head, of course, as an investigator, is Soledad O'Brien. As everyone knows, her great work over the years has led us to a lot of information that we didn't know before. Anyway, so now the podcast's over. Okay, you got it done. This was a movie project, a failed movie project, then a failed TV project, and now a failed podcast project. But I liked a lot of it, Mark. Yes, I know you did. There's a lot of money behind it, and there's a lot of work that went into it, and a lot of sources, and now it's over. But yet we, with no money and no getting demonetized every week, continue to do as a side project, Hunley and I, on our own. I got an email today from Keenan down in Dallas saying a woman from an old friend of his from the Washington Post who had investigated Seth Cantor, who wrote the book, Who is Jack Ruby, which I still highly recommend, was complimenting our podcast, was complimenting the show, and that I had promoted the Seth Cantor book, Who is Jack Ruby. And Seth Cantor, of course, the journalist who encounters Jack Ruby at Parkland Hospital, completely discredited by the Warren Commission, veteran journalist with who knew Jack Ruby. And he says he was standing there talking to me at the hospital. He was thoroughly discredited, which is one of my favorite discreditations by the Warren Commission, is that of Seth Cantor. So anyway, so we got some fans. She's retired, but I think she was Dallas Morning News and Washington Post at one point.
No, it's nice. I mean, whatever we can get, even on this episode right now. Of course, we are demonetized way back at 5 minutes in. Also, the numbers were really low, and I happened to see on the chat, all of a sudden the numbers started to pick up a little bit. People just got the notification. So this is another.
This is an assault at this point.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Well,
let's get it. Forget about that crap.
Okay.
I just want to address one thing about that. You brilliant. What's that?
Okay.
No, I just want to address one thing from last week about the Ed Lansdale episode. It's two things. You know, one is Eric found the ARRB testimony, and we put it up on Locals of them grilling Fletcher Prouty under oath, and they dismantle him. And if you want to read that on Locals, I don't know if it's accessible to non-Locals members, but you could find it on your own somewhere. The ARRB took Fletcher Prouty, sat him down, and started to grill him about his various statements in the film JFK, and he put it this way: he doesn't come out smelling like a rose. For all you Fletcher Prouty fans out there, it took me years to because I believe Fletcher Prouty too. You know, I just took it for granted. You got to drill down. I mean, the guy becomes a Scientologist. He becomes a UFOologist. This is a guy looking for a cause. And, you know, the guy who smears Ed Lansdale, when you trace back the origin of the smear, it's Fletcher Prouty regarding the JFK assassination. And as we said in the episode last week, Lansdale retired when DM was assassinated because DM was his best friend. And he was crushed by that, as was JFK. The famous photo of JFK getting the call over the phone. They try to prevent the DM assassination up until Henry Cabot Lodge, working behind the scenes with Big Min and some other cats in Saigon, finished off the DM brothers. That was done against Kennedy's wishes, and Kennedy was extremely depressed by the assassination of DM. He'll only survive 3 weeks later himself. But so was Ed Lansdale, who was so close to DM and had been intellectually friends with him for so many years. I just wanted to clean that up.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're still, don't worry, we'll still be corrected in the chat, and I'm getting emails on the side, and Facebook messengers and everything else. We're wrong. We're getting all the facts wrong, on and on and on. But I get, you know, it comes with the territory. But let's see. Speaking of territory, what do you think about Johns Hopkins? And
yeah. I mean, what are you going to do with this? I mean, these people, again, as we've said before, they have nothing to do. You get this job, it pays 600,000, 400,000, whatever thousand it pays. Now you're in a place that has absolutely no racism. Fill in the blank, the page. Fill in the place. Tell me where it is. You're at Harvard. You're the diversity officer at this place. Now you're in there. Now what do? You go around the hall looking for racism? No. You begin to do what? You have to do this. How do you justify your salary at a place where there's no racism for you to see? You know, nothing's happening on a day-to-day. She goes to work, puts in 40 hours. What does she see for 40 hours? Nothing. She sees absolutely nothing. So as Lenny Bruce said, and thank you, Mask Man, you have to make trouble. And that's what this bitch is doing.
All right, well, here we go. Hopefully he's joking. I am wrong. I cannot face the truth.
I don't know what the truth is. I've asked people to show me stuff, some links or something about the Lansdale related to the Kennedy assassination, but all roads, surprisingly, lead back to Fletcher Prouty.
True. And by the way, I know that sometimes you guys are toying with us in the chat, so it's hard to get in written words. Some people are serious, and I know from the emails, the longer they are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, all caps is usually a tip off when you see all caps.
That's true. That's true. But good news, she did retract it when.
Oh, she wants to keep her job. She doesn't do anything. Look, this one is a no-brainer that you pointed out, but the best one, which a couple of people picked up on yesterday, which I did also. I didn't mention this to you, but Letitia James showing up at the Trump trial yesterday. I don't know if you saw what she did, Eric.
No.
But Letitia James showed up and sat in the front row. I can't even make this up. This is just so freaking. I just wanted to tell you this before I forgot about it. I know we got some other articles to cover. But yesterday in the Trump trial, this is the one with the crazy corpse of a judge and the Democratic sidekick sitting next to him on Xanax.
No, hold on. The judge who likes to pose naked online.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Who I've heard might be into some other weird crap. But anyway, so Letitia James. Now keep in mind, when you go to court, when you go to federal court, state court, you can't bring in food and beverages and books. You just can't do it. Okay. So Letitia James, who really needs liposuction or Ozempic as soon as humanly possible. Letitia James, Attorney General out of New York City, comes into the court with a Starbucks drink, which is completely forbidden. Nobody's allowed to do this. This fat bastard comes in and sits down. And what does she do, Eric? She takes her shoes off and begins rubbing her feet for the entire afternoon's events. has her feet out, her shoes off, with a Starbucks, sitting there in the courtroom, smirking the entire time that she's there. And it was picked up by another TV station, so I know it was true, because I heard that and I went, how is this possible? This is not only just an officer of the court, which she is, she violates every single thing about the court rules yesterday in the case, and we'll see how the judge rules. I think it's a fait accompli.
Yeah, I don't think it's actual contempt, so they won't rule on it.
Right.
Anyway,
Anyway,
arguing about procedures or things like that.
Well, you talk about disrespecting the court. Imagine if Trump brought in a bottle of beer and took his shoes off and put them up on the bench. I mean, this is essentially what this bitch did. I mean, it's crazy. And now also we're starting to figure out, to go on this thread a little bit further, we're beginning to see that the entire thing is being coordinated by the Oval Office. We're starting to see the paper trail, the financial trail, the records trail, the login trail, the White House logs of people who were going up there, the phone logs. The one in Georgia with Fannie Willis is just absolutely insane. She's banging the guy she hired as a prosecutor, who is a guy who's never prosecuted a felony case in his life, who is mounting her repeatedly. And then she's paying him all this money to take her on trips, these glamorous, expensive vacations, to the guy, her sex partner. And now there's a paper trail of him going to the White House and billing at the lowly $250 an hour, by the way, in Georgia, which is, I guess, the going rate for an attorney is $250. He's billing the government in Georgia for the time that she sent him to the White House. This thing is bigger than Watergate. It's Watergate on steroids. This is so huge. These different cases. Now, what they've done, to give you a broad stroke on where I'm coming from this thing, they have selected these mutts, these fronts, these people in these various states to be the front. Now, they have to be stupid, because the legal stuff is being run out of the White House legal department and the Department of Justice. So these people who are standing there in the courtroom in Georgia and New York and these various places are mere fronts for the Justice Department. And they are have intentionally been handpicked because of their lack of intelligence and lack of legal knowledge. So someone who had integrity would never be involved in this type of shenanigans. So they have taken Alvin Bragg, and they've taken Letitia James, and they've taken Fannie Willis, and they've taken this necro judge, and they're using these people as pawns, as fronts for them, as puppet masters behind the scenes in the Oval Office, running this multi-city, multi-case election interference against Donald Trump. That's what's going on. That's where the news is now taking us. That's where we are. That's where this is leading to. And we're starting to see paper trail, phone trail, monetary trail of all of these cases linked together in one central location, and that's the White House. Wow.
That's one of those that it's shocking, but not surprising.
A lot of things are not surprising to you, but
No,
to the rest of us at home, we're fucking shocked.
Exactly, it's both.
I lived through Watergate, and there was stuff in Watergate that was fucking shocking, but not at this level of shocking, where it's becoming apparent to everyone what is going on here. In Watergate, it was all behind the scenes. It was all done by committee. There was stuff, and now I'm understanding that the deposition of Hunter Biden will proceed, Eric, right?
Oh, apparently.
Yeah, this is late breaking news. Also, now he's going to be deposed.
He apparently agrees to it, which here's the problem I have. I'm not trusting the damn Republicans on this, because it's like, they're like, we want to depose you behind closed doors, not in the open. I'm like, why?
No, okay, that's why I wanted to explain this, because this is the legal system we've had for close to 100 years. Where you're deposed behind closed doors, as Donald Trump Jr. was, for over 100 hours. This will take him over 100 hours under oath behind closed doors. Then this is not just for him. It wasn't just for Donald Trump Jr. This goes back decade after decade of how this is done, Eric, going back to the McCarthy times. And once you're under oath and everybody gets their chance to grill you and there's an exchange of documents, in private, in behind closed doors. They will have a public hearing, and that's where the 5-minute rule comes into effect.
Okay.
So so he wanted to avoid, I didn't understand this at first either.
That makes sense.
He wanted to avoid the deposition, legal under oath, behind the committee wall part of it. That's why he was doing this grandstanding and trying to have this phony public hearing thing. It all collapsed today. The entire thing collapsed. His lawyers have agreed to do it like everyone else did, like Navarro did it, like Bannon did it, like Donald Trump Jr. did it. That's what he's going to get. And out of that, which there will be leaks, there will be different things. There are perjury traps galore. It's going to take 100 hours behind the scenes of him being grilled, like Don Jr., who came out clean as a whistle. And they didn't want to put Merrick Garland in the spot of having to contradict his moves on Navarro and Bannon. They didn't want to have him in that tough spot because that would have shined the bright light of complete injustice from the Justice Department onto this particular country. So he's threatening, from what I understand, to turn against his dad, which is what they were trying to avoid. They do not, and whether it's intentional or not, Eric, when you have these House investigators who are the people behind the people, beginning to sharpen their knives behind the scenes, they're going to get to the bottom of his relationship with his father business-wise. And it's going to be leaked out. You could guarantee that. But this is what they've been stalling to avoid. That's what I wanted to get at with this story, which broke today.
All right. And that makes sense. Just to clarify that I got it right. So essentially, behind closed doors, they can spend forever getting into every nook and cranny and detail. And then in the public hearing, that's the greatest hits album.
That's the greatest hits album. Yeah, those are 5-minute cuts off the album. And then it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't matter. That's a show. That's the dog and pony show. That's meaningless. What the real meat and potatoes is the 100 hours that he's going to be under oath behind the scenes. That's what Adam Schiff kept leaking out. That's what's going to be leaked out from this. There's going to be different various spins, but at the end of the day, there's massive perjury traps back there for him behind the scenes of doing this stuff under oath, which he was trying to avoid and have people. And that's why he showed up the other day. That's why he was down here in the federal courthouse in LA the other day with his 11 count or 10 count indictment where he's facing 19 years of tax charges. This guy is going to try to cut a deal, but I don't know if there's anybody willing to cut him a deal at this point. So just to remind people, yesterday he was here at federal court in Los Angeles before a Trump appointed judge who made a trial date of June on his tax charges, Eric, just so we're up to date. The 11 count indictment where he's facing 19 years in prison.
All right. Very quickly, I saw there's some confusion here. I do want to answer this for Kevin Martin. Demonetized. What demonetized means on YouTube is we don't get any ad revenue, which is a big part of our income when it's on the show. It does not, however, affect super chats. So anyone who's thinking that you're contributing anything to us other than the YouTube 30%, the Apple 30%, the Google 30% that all comes out the top, that does get through to us. So you do still help us out. You're not throwing the money completely away, in case you were curious. Just to clarify that.
No, I believe that this is going to have to end up in Congress, not our case, but everyone's case. Because if anybody ran a business like this, where they take, and I said this to somebody yesterday, imagine you're on NBC News. You produced a show that, not NBC News, but NBC, you produced a show, ice skating of the stars or something, and they don't like the politics of ice skating of the stars every week. So they run your show, keep your money, run their ads, and tell you to go F yourself. That's in essence what this organization, this media organization, is doing. It would be like network TV, preventing Seinfeld from getting his money, running it anyway, and the ads, and keeping that money. That's in essence what's happening to Eric and myself.
Yeah, and many others too.
And many others. That's what I'm saying. It's not just us. It's many others. This has to be resolved before Congress. This is a Better Business Bureau project. This is a consumer affairs issue. This is not about censorship. This is about money. And that's why this is going to have to go to some congressional committee that deals with this. This is not a Section 230 issue, although there's plenty of those. This is not one of them. This is about demonetization, And by the time all your viewers have watched the show, which is the first day or two, then they manually look at it and go, oh, yeah, we don't see a problem now. And they do.
Hold on. They say, good news.
Yeah, good news.
We've determined that this is eligible.
Yeah, good news. Good news.
I literally, I tweeted this out. I think you saw it too, Mark. Operation Paperclip, either part 1 or part 2 that came out in March. Was good news, I think, a week ago.
Right. They studied, they brought in experts from overseas. They brought in ex-Nazis who came in and examined it. Werner von Braun came in and looked and said, from the afterlife, said, sehr gut. That's what it says, sehr gut. And somehow it was lifted, the ban. Imagine what they're doing. I just want to see, I want to get under oath in the bright lights of Congress, the little guys who are not the big guys, because they're full of shit.
Engineers.
Get the engineers. I want to hear from the engineers and have a whistleblower engineer who tells us the system. I want to know the nuts and bolts system of how this works. And I cannot believe that as long as they've been doing this, that nobody has blown a whistle on them to come out, even write a book about it, make a documentary about it, because it's absolutely fascinating and inquiring minds want to know.
I agree. But there is, well, no, it's not good news anymore for ESPN Emmy winners.
I am trying to figure this out because I reread this again last night, and I think they were simply engraving the names of the winners on phony Emmy Awards, like you would buy in a gift store that says Eric Hunley Academy Award.
No, it's worse. They submitted fake names. Like, let's say I was being put up for it. They would submit for Aaron Holsley, and then they scratched out the names and put my name on and then stuck it on the shelf. I mean, they walked to me as a performer and said, "Here's your award, Eric."
I didn't really understand what was going on, but it does remind me of the 20th Century Fox phony film reviewer from Connecticut from the 90s, where the staff of the newspaper, which somebody pointed out in the comments a couple weeks ago when I mentioned this, that they created a phony film reviewer of Fox films that reviewed them really positively. And then the staff said, "Who is this guy?" And Fox had to admit that they made up a film critic and put him on this newspaper and had to come out and say, "We made up the whole thing." This is similar to that. Similar, but not exact.
But it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch.
Right. I mean, you talk about a Marxist. They should have their own Marxist awards. Why even fake these awards? Have Marxist Emmy Awards of just, different corporations that want to give out awards like this,
And it also kind of makes me wonder if the other, quote, Emmy nominees might have an actionable claim, because technically somebody just beat them out who doesn't even exist. And an Emmy award, I would think, would be very valuable for your professional advancement and things like that. And to have that opportunity taken away through fraud, this is fraud.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about it. Not only that, they were suspended for a year, which is kind of ironic for a sports network to be suspended.
Hey, they cover the Olympics.
Yeah. And to be suspended, I think, is a great sports analogy for a year from the Emmys. But what are you going to do about that? I mean, boo-hoo,
I know, but 1 year actually seems like a joke there.
No, the whole thing's a joke. Obviously, if you could I wanted to get into this a little bit, a tiny bit about this guy Coy from the Golden Globes the other night, because it's similar to this story with the Emmys. Mm-hmm. This guy Coy, this mutt, showed up, and my friends know him. He shows up at Wildcard here, Freddie Roach's boxing gym. He shows up there. He trains a little bit there, and everybody thinks this guy's an asshole and completely unfunny. He's Filipino American, like that's a thing. His father's white, and he was selected to be the host. And I said this last week, and I was talking to Dr. Drew privately, and I said, with the Ricky Gervais and Chappelle specials, and Gervais did win a special award as best stand-up performance in a new category, and it was given by Jim Gaffigan, who should have been the host of the Golden Globes, because Jim Gaffigan, a veteran stand-up comic, came out and says, I don't know why I'm here. I don't even know how I got selected for this job. I'm not a pedophile or anything. And the audience had to fucking laugh because the woke stuff is over. And I said to Dr. Drew privately, we were talking about it, because he was asking me how comedy can be the canary in the coal mine of the end of this thing. And I said, when you are a woke comic now, there's nowhere for you to perform. It's over. It's over. And because when I saw the Chappelle special, Chappelle, like I said last week, spent 5 seconds on that congressman in the wheelchair, made one joke about him. There was no anti-Trump stuff. There was no woke stuff. It was a full-on anti-woke assault by David Chappelle, is this current special. And then the same thing with Ricky Gervais. And I realized, talking to my comedy friends, nobody can go into a club any longer and be woke and try to have an audience. It's over. It's over. So this schmuck, this guy Coy, comes out on the Golden Globes, takes the money, gets hired 10 days before the Golden Globes because whoever had the job saw those jokes out of the writer's room and said, I ain't going out there. But this guy Coy did it for the money and was savaged by online people. He went after Taylor Swift. He went after white people. He made Barbie jokes. They destroyed this guy. And Drew called me up and he said, you're absolutely right. And I went, yeah, I saw that last night. And I just wanted to put that out there because of the Emmy Awards and now the Golden Globes. Getting back to the Golden Globes, they were banned from television, banned, and allowed to become the Golden Globes Foundation now and some other Bubba and came back, and Robert Downey thanked them for whatever. And they gave out awards to just people walking by who were people of color. Anybody who was overweight got an award. There was some people of strange nationalities got awards. There were Asian people getting awards that I never even saw, shows I never heard of. But the thing about Coy was he bombed at such a high level that it was just a beautiful thing to watch. And I think it's going to really drive a stake into the finality of being a woke comic any longer in America. That dog won't hunt anymore. When you see Ricky Gervais and Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock going up there doing anti-woke jokes, you know that ship has left the station. That ship has gone. And in that ship is the future of American media. We'll see how long this lasts and how long it takes. But it is the first real bright, shining light of anti-wokeness coming back into vogue.
You know what? There's another sign of it too. Don Lemon is on X with his own show. Yeah. By the way, who's trumpeting free speech now. So Woke Fest Don Lemon is like, hey, I'm a free speech guy now.
Oh yeah, so they'll be the first cats. They'll be the first cats to put their finger in the air and find out whichever way the wind blows. They're going to go. But to start to see it, I think, is a social media indication of which the zeitgeist of the country is shifting. And I think that's good news for us, for regular people.
I agree. I want to go to the super chat, and I didn't talk to you about this ahead, but since you're so wired in with comedy history, different things like that, have you heard about the Cat Williams interview? This thing is.
I don't really know who Cat Williams is. I don't really know who he is.
He's a black comedian, and he went after like every other black comedian, for joke thieving, things like that. One thing that spun out of it, though, that was interesting is Dave Chappelle apparently said this several years back, and I hadn't heard of it, but I guess it might be a thing. And he talked about black performers and the dress.
That the dress,
right? That essentially every black performer, before they actually become big or superstars, have to wear a dress. And he mentioned that he was on a movie or something.
I know what that means.
No, I mean, quite literally, I guess Kevin Hart, down the line, all of them. I had never heard of this before.
Really? Bill Cosby, Nipsey Russell?
I don't know.
I would have to Scatman Crothers.
At least in modern day, all the performers, I guess that like Tyler Perry type stuff that they.
Well, he's a guy who wears a dress all the time, Tyler Perry. So that's not
right.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, well then I'm not going to dwell on it because I'll.
No. You could dwell on it. I mean, I made a show for HBO called "Mo Funny Black Comedy in America" on the history of African American comedy, which I welcome people to find. It's 90 minutes on the history of African American comedy. Cat Williams is not in that documentary. I could tell you that much. But Martin Lawrence is in there. I don't know if Martin Lawrence is wearing a dress, but as is every black comic in the history of African American comedy up until the time I made it, which is probably 2003 or something. I forget what year. Or
Yeah, I think he
2000.
started in the 90s. It was on the circuit.
Yeah, I
coming
don't
up,
really,
so.
I'm not really hip to Cat Williams, but you know, when you're seeing a Chris Rock and you're seeing people like Chappelle at that level, which is Seinfeldian level of stand up, you know, that level, beginning to do complete anti-woke shows, we have broken through, and I think that needs to be highlighted, and people need to support these artists so we know we could drive a stake into this thing.
Oh yeah, there's a clip going around on right now with Jerry Seinfeld with a BuzzFeed reporter, and they're sitting together on the stage, and the BuzzFeed reporter looks at Seinfeld and he looks at the audience. He goes, "Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of white faces. You know, I don't see a lot. No, I don't see a lot of diversity in your work." And Seinfeld just lights into him. He's like, "What? You're really pissing me off." And then he said, "Let's look at the room here. Oh, look, there's not a lot of black faces in this room." He just lit into the guy.
Seinfeld is a political conservative, by the way, just when people didn't know. He is a big supporter of the state of Israel and a big supporter of conservative causes privately. That being said, there was a Lampoon documentary that came out a number of years ago. We had a press event for this documentary that came out on Netflix, I think it was, on the history of Lampoon. And one of the reporters said, "How come there were no black people at Lampoon?" At the time, there was no black voices at National Lampoon. So my friend Michael Simmons famously said there were no black people in the Beatles either, bro. One of the great lines of the night, which was absolutely genius. And we left it at that.
Yeah, and back in the day, people might shut up, but now they'd be like, "You know, you're right. Let's go back and digitally insert one."
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this situation in Sheepshead Bay, my old neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is James Madison High School, where they have taken the African illegal migrants and put them into the high school near where I grew up. This is between Midwood and Gerritsen Beach. Happens to be my old neighborhood. So I was following the story pretty closely in Sheepshead Bay. They have taken the children out of the school. They now have to be homeschooled, and they've turned over the entire high school for these African migrants who were being held at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, also in South Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay-ish area. My dad used to work, before he worked at Kennedy Airport, he worked at Floyd Bennett Field. So they had them there, and they said the weather became inclement, so they commandeered through the mayor of New York the entire high school and kicked out all the students of the high school and all the events, the high school events, and said you have to do it as homeschooling. The parents went berserk. They told them to go F themselves. And it turns out, not surprisingly, it's the only red Trump district in New York other than Staten Island. That's in Sheepshead Bay. And it's between Midwood, the school's between Midwood and Sheepshead Bay. And you could see when they were showing the maps, you could see where my Little League team was and some of the other stuff. And I went, "Oh my God, that's red." I couldn't believe it. The whole Sheepshead Bay is still red. I was very, very proud. Anyway, so the mayor is now between a rock and a hard place because the school is now housing all of the African migrants. And one of the black congresswomen or councilwomen in the district wanted them to come to her district because she has a lot of Hasidic Jews in her district. And she was bluntly saying how she needs them to offset the amount of Jews and Hasidic Orthodox Jews in her particular district. She wanted them, but to penalize the red people in Sheepshead Bay, the mayor sent them there to F with them.
All I could ask is one question. What about the teachers union? Are they out of job, or do they just get paid to stay at home so they're cool?
They'll probably get paid to stay at home or just go to other schools. Yeah, they're going to be doing the online learning, Eric. So I guess they could stay home and do the online learning. Of course, the parents immediately now have to stay home from going into Manhattan to go to work at a Sheepshead Bay. They got to stay home with their kids. I mean, it's an upheaval of a domino effect. And with no warning, they moved in the African migrants. And there's even more of an update. The mayor came out last night in a press conference saying that the citizens of New York who have extra bedrooms have to take in the migrants now.
Well, there is one bright spot that the children probably are going to get better educated. They can always go to another school and be taught this. And
Yeah, I saw that. That's great. This is a woman who is now, I think, been removed today. This is out of Queens, where she has eliminated Israel from the world map of the Arab. And this really got a lot of attention because it was so brazen in the New York City public school to simply eradicate what they can't do militarily, what they can't do politically, what they can't do economically, they can do artistically. So Israel, which is what happens on Air Emirates, by the way, and other Arab airlines. When you look at the map as you're flying, there is no Israel on those maps on those Arab airlines, which many other people have pointed out years ago that they have this on those maps in the planes, the map that you're seeing on the back of the seat on your screen, that they also do that there. This is obviously wishful thinking because I think God may have another opinion other than Air Qatar, who seems to be financing all of this stuff. So you got that in the news too. So, I mean, New York has just been overrun by this. How they got there, I don't know. But it is what it is. It's time to get it on. But the Houthis are now in trouble, I guess, Eric, right?
It appears so. Whatever. Okay, let's go. Let's bring it back to here. You sent me the story. Please fill me in the details because it's surprising. The Texas National Guard seized control over the federal government.
Right. Hold on for a second. Yeah, hold on. Go ahead.
Okay. I have no idea what this is about, so I'm going to go through some chats here. David March, nothing good comes from Vancouver. From what I understand, Vancouver's a beautiful place, so that's really sad. Sergeant Willie, look at the Oregon drug law that they now want to reverse. Jason probably knows of the issue. Yes, by the way, his book, I don't think there's any drug issue this guy doesn't know about. And if it is involving the Northwest United States, that guy is all over it. I mean, all over it. And I can't recommend the book highly enough, but I will tell you, if you're like me, you have to read it in pieces. Like I listened to it in between other stuff. I was just talking about Jason. Somebody is pointing out in Oregon law. And I said, yeah, if you're wondering about any law, especially in the Northwest, dealing with drugs, crime, whatever, that book, it's in there.
Oh, yeah.
In detail.
Yeah, that's a great book. Great book.
Incredible.
Now, what were you just showing? I'm sorry, I missed that for a second.
Okay.
The story about the Eagle Pass thing. Yeah, this is going to. They're immediately going to the Supreme Court, the Biden administration. So we'll see what the Governor Abbott will come up with. But they physically have seized the town, which you and I and others have been talking about for years. Abbott is finally making the bold move of seizing the town with the Texas National Guard. To stop further immigration through that. This is what I gathered. I don't know the physical details. The story broke pretty much today. But from what I understand, the Texas National Guard is now blocking access through Eagle Pass. So
I think this is going to be an interesting showdown. And if it is in the Supreme Court, it could pass because there's I don't know which way it go because there's a couple unreliable justices like Roberts.
Yeah.
Where you don't know exactly where they're going to land. But I'm going to guess that they're making the case that the federal government is breaking federal law. So it'd be kind of like if a cop or let's say an FBI agent is in a town and he's somehow breaking law or something, when the police technically arrest or hold them or seize the property if they're breaking it. So I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I'm guessing, and I might be projecting, but I'm guessing that it may be something like that. Like we have to seize control because they are breaking the law, enforce the law, and we will relinquish this control.
Well, Paxton, who is obviously going to have to put on his suit and tie and go up again to the Supreme Court, Paxton, who they tried to eliminate from being on the field of play. They did not see Paxton coming back, and he was, unbelievably victorious in the attempts to impeach Paxton. He will be the guy on the ground at the Supreme Court representing the state of Texas, which is going to be really interesting. And keep in mind, they may have or thought through their legal take on this thing at great length. So I don't think they did it willy-nilly is what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Now, okay, but you know what? Let's go back to New York. A lot of New York tonight. But
yeah, I mean, it's the tip of the spear right now. California, it's because Newsom is trying to lay low. So, and we have a budget deficit of $69 billion, 68 to $69 billion here in California because the the tax base has fled on foot to other states. They now have a shortfall, a budgetary shortfall of like 58 to $65 billion. So he announced this week he's going to have to cut even, dare I say it, climate change programs in the state of California.
Finally,
they now have to be cut, some of them, because they simply don't have the dinero, and I don't mean Robert, to pay for these crazy programs.
They're so idiotic. It's almost like they're headed towards the point where they'll say, okay, everybody buy an electric car, but you now need to relinquish your electric cars because our grid did shut down. Who could have seen that coming?
Who could have seen that one coming? I mean, the governor of Connecticut, when they pointed out, when the economic division of the state of Connecticut pointed out to him the massive tax loss from gasoline tax revenues, how it was going to bankrupt the state, he said, okay, never mind.
Oh, wait a minute.
No, he went, never mind, electric cars, that's out. They just pointed out how they're not going to, they had like till 2030 or something to go completely electric like he was doing here in California. And the guy says he rescinded it, the governor. He was a pragmatic guy. And he says, okay, that's out. Thanks for stopping by.
Wow. Let me see. We've got, okay, you sent this one. It's interesting. The Russia, having RT or what it's Russia Today, I think, originally reporting about Israel being barred from ice hockey championship.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that it's RT. I mean, this is
no. I just think ironically, Russia has been banned, and so Russia. Anyway, whatever.
That's why they're running it, because now the Commission on Ice Hockey is now banning the Israelis for their own good. Because God knows there could be trouble. So we're going to have to ban the ice hockey champion team of the Israelis because there may be trouble. So, I mean, they're using a different excuse than what they did against the Russian ice hockey team. But the irony is breathtaking. I'm telling you that if you read RT there, and Lavrov, who is the foreign minister, says that Israel in many ways is in the same position that Russia is in world politics regarding Ukraine and Israel fighting their enemies. There seems to be a lot of strange bedfellows coming together, Eric, all around the world. I mean, this is a realignment, which we started to see under Trump, of the planet Earth.
Wow. Okay, let me go through some super chats since YouTube's not paying us. At least we have.
Who the hell's paying it? Why are we doing this? Who's going to pay for my goddamn
people?
I need book money. Come on, people, cough it up. Let's go.
Let me see, Dina. I'll send my daughter Dolly to meet you in Youngstown. She was on Survivor. I'm in Korea, and I don't know.
Korea, Oregon, or Korea like?
I think it was cut off when it got.
By the way, the Oregon, whatever the hell you want. Oregon, who gives a shit what you? I think you know what I'm talking about. Their Supreme Court has not ruled on Trump on the ballot. I think they sent it back down and said they're not ready to rule on him being on the ballot in Oregon. Not that he'd win that state, but as I pointed out, he does have coattails. And if you're on the ballot, you can ride to victory on coattails, which I don't know if people know what coattails are, but nevertheless, removing the top candidate from the ballot. People didn't really think about this, but the effect is that down ballot, there's an effect, Eric.
Okay, and as far as state pronunciations, apparently just don't get Nevada wrong or them spiking words.
I'm going to do it on purpose now. I don't give a shit.
Be like Nevada.
Let me tell you something. New York is New York, right? California. If you're naming your state and it's got multiple pronunciations, it's your tourism that's going to take a hit. So, people start spreading the news, New York, New York. It doesn't say Nyack, or other.
Well, it depends on where you are.
Nevada, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off.
Oh God, Papa. Mark, are you ever going to do Lizzie Borden? She is an American and my distant cousin, and she was framed.
I'm sorry, it's been done so many times. We're trying to really, I mean, Lizzie Borden is quite a bit on Lizzie Borden. Despite
John Douglas, who was the character covered in Mindhunter on Netflix, wrote up about he wrote up about Lizzie Borden. It broke down her whole case. He's the top FBI profiler, and he pretty much said he didn't think she did it. So I'm just saying, if you want somebody,
go look at that. He's right. Eric's right. But it's been covered a lot, is all I'm saying. I'm looking for more obscure things. Congratulations that you're married to a relative of an axe murderer. That's great.
All right. Well, there you go. And Al Gonzalez from the Hush Table had our first storytelling show in New York last night. It was sold out. Gritty stories and a few AUS fans there too.
Wow.
Thanks again to you both for the inspiration.
Yeah, get down to Sheepshead Bay and help get those migrants out of that high school, Al. Let's just get a couple of retired New York City cops and retired fire department people and get over to Marine Park, because that's where the battle lines are being drawn now. And we got to get those migrants out of that school and put regular kids back in that school. I mean, that's a physical situation. So congrats on your story, Howard. Great idea.
Oh, yeah. And I can only imagine cop stories. And
I can. That's why. That's why I love hanging with these guys. Like when I was a location manager and they had that crazy movie police unit of bad cops who ended up being movie unit cops. They had the greatest stories of all time. And, they do have great stories.
All right. And very quickly on the Rumble rant, Alan, speaking of New York cops, sent us a gigantic $200 Rumble rant saying, Eric, I'm exercising my white baby boomer privilege to send you and Mark this Rumble rant.
What a boomer privilege. That's a great, when these boomers are gone, they're going to mourn the loss of all the boomers, and they won't have us to kick around anymore, Al.
That's right. Let me see. Mo Bishop said, demonetize this, YouTube.
Try to do that. That's a good one.
Definitely.
Thanks to Alan. Thanks to Mo. Thanks to the people who are, helping us out, because it ain't going to be YouTube helping us out.
No, and locals is
locals. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Are you going to? Just to remind you about the meetup, because the tickets you're saying are going to go on sale tomorrow,
imminently, hopefully
imminently. Using imminently at this point. Imminent domain. Huntley's going with imminent domain at this point. But we're going to be somewhere in the middle of March. Beware the Ides of March, according to Eric.
It will be in downtown Youngstown, Ohio.
Crime Town. This is where we're going. We're going into the belly of the beast, Crime Town, USA, the former home of James Traficant. And when we do an episode, we go deep. We're going into the homeland of Traficant to meet more people who are going to tell us about the one of the great congressmen of all time, because he still has a lot of fans who have reached out to me and Eric who live there. So hopefully there'll be enough tickets for everyone, especially in Youngstown, to get into the events, the multiple events.
Yeah, one person wrote in, I don't even remember where anymore, about Traficant, that they were a reporter back in the time that Traficant was there. And apparently, not only did Traficant say, I'm not going to evict these people. Time, but apparently Traficant took it upon himself, found an obscure law, according to this reporter, about if everybody had a certain amount of silver, they could not be evicted from their property. So he was standing out with a huge stack of silver coins, giving it to everyone who had come along to prevent them from being evicted. And when I hear that kind of thing, it's like, yeah, no wonder nobody could touch a son of a bitch. Because I mean,
that's brilliant.
If somebody did that for you in your town, I mean,
you'd be a rock star.
Deservedly too. I mean,
by the way, I think Alan, I think you could take a train to Ohio from New York. I think
he's going to drive. He said, "Oh, that's a short drive."
Okay, that's a golf. That's a chip shot. Okay, just drive. Just get there. These people. Everybody's complaining about the airlines. Look, so what? The door blows off. Keep your seatbelt on. There's no problem. I mean, your cell phone might get sucked off, but just don't leave anything on the tray, when you're flying, and do not take the emergency row seats. They're not as valuable as you think they once were, because another United plane had to land quickly because the door was coming open. So sit in the back, sit in the front, keep your seatbelt on, which I was learned at a very young age by my dad. He said, don't ever take your seatbelt off because, I mean, you could hit the ceiling at any time on any plane. I mean, you could in an air pocket, and I mean, you can get splattered up on that ceiling. So maybe it might be a good lesson for everybody.
God, I know I've had that in the flight where all of a sudden, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. I mean, so don't get sucked out the door. Of course, some of the overweight people like Blofeld and in the James Bond movie, I think it was Goldfinger who gets sucked out the window of a private jet that depressurized. Is that the end of Goldfinger?
I don't remember which one.
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and say that was the end of Goldfinger. I think Goldfinger got sucked out of a depressurized private jet when the window got shot out in Goldfinger. And don't let that happen to you because no matter how fat you are, that's a pretty wide door on the emergency row exit door. So you're going to go out there and you're going to be unfortunately the Hindenburg for a few seconds at the end of your life there if you're flying on United or Air Alaska. So keep the multiple seatbelt extender on you. If you're getting the extra seat, try to latch on to that extra seatbelt to make sure you don't get sucked out.
And I won't say that that's actually a Southwest strategy to have in case something happens with the door. I won't go there with a bad joke. That would be very tacky. I don't know how to say this. UW Thai IGH, I guess. Won the 3 heat chugger at Hunter Bar. I don't know what that is. Hunter Biden or Hunter Mountain? I'm not sure. Could be Hunter Mountain. What's a 3 heat chugger? I don't know. Maybe something related to the ski industry or something. Oh, I thought it was like beer. It could be. It could be some sort of a beer thing, but I don't know if he's talking about Hunter. It's so funny because the guy that Hunter Biden brought to, I saw this sketchy guy in the hallway with him, long hair. He looks completely shredded, shredded in a bad way. And I went, oh my God, that's the guy who's taking the bong hits in the Hunter Biden videos with him. That's his lawyer. His lawyer from the videos on the fictitious laptop from hell showed up with him in the house, taking the bong hits in the video. Now he's his lawyer. I'm going like, holy cow. I mean, you figured you'd get another guy, you know. He needs a lawyer who's relatable. Right. And he's also the guy, by the way, from what I understand, who is the cutout who's been buying up his artwork, which is another form of bribery of these paintings for other people. He's not buying for himself, but he's the cutout guy who you go through to pay Hunter, to pay the big man to buy this monkey art from Hunter Biden. You got to go through that guy. Wow. What is that getting you like $10,000 to $100,000 a pop or some ridiculous numbers? Right. Well, they say they don't have the names of the people, and it's all because that's now a payola method to get to his dad. I mean, this is not original stuff. This goes back as old as time. These are not really brilliant criminals. That's why people are kind of shocked at the simplicity of these crimes. They work. But they work, and there's a reason that they work is because of their simplicity. And subjectiveness. It's like art's value is in the eye of the beholder. So it's a perfect laundering mechanism. What do you mean that's not worth $10,000? Well, the Chinese art, which they started in the 90s and 2000s, the Chinese got hip to this and they said, hey, you know what? We can make Kandinsky's also. And they started to make their own modern art, the Chinese communists. And they said, this is worth $1 million. And who's to say it's not? Our own CIA, if you look at the episode we did on CIA in the art world, they invented modern art, and they took in a lot of money doing it. Yeah, they did. Innisfad, any thoughts about Crown Heights? About Crown Heights, Brooklyn? Well, is it the tunnels? Okay, just to resolve this thing with the tunnels, your Michigan is these the Luboviches, who were the Kabod people, were building a tunnel not to. You got to define these words. What's a Lubavitch and a Kabbalah? Lubavitch is an extreme Orthodox sect that is based in Crown Heights, and
The Kabad is another offshoot of that. They were building a tunnel,
Okay.
not to smuggle people out of North Vietnam or to get into Hamas. It was to go underneath the building, and they didn't get a permit. So they hired people to dig a tunnel for them to go into the next building, not to smuggle drugs, not to smuggle arms, but to have access to this other building. And they didn't get permitted to do it, which is what these guys do all the time anyway. So they flipped out when they seized their tunnel, and they're fining them. Like the city of New York doesn't have enough problems. There is a legitimate beef on the part of the city. You can't just start digging tunnels under buildings. I get it. But that's the extent of the story. It's not like they're smuggling munitions under these buildings. They just wanted access to the synagogue next door.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
That's the story.
Okay. Let me see. Dogboy saying pre-World War II Germany was beautiful too. Canada equals Nazism.
Well, look, when you're bringing Nazis to be feted in your parliament with an award ceremony, I think you got a problem. I mean, call me crazy. We had problems with Operation Paperclip, but they're actually living it up there. That's their Academy Awards is called Operation Paperclip. They've got Nazis coming out of the kazoo up there. But that's the least of their problems. The guy from Rebel News, that footage of him that guy set a pic the NBA would be proud of. The bodyguard, the undercover cop, for the deputy prime minister, or whatever a title is up there, the second in command to Trudeau. This older gentleman for Rebel News was doing a walk and talk interview with her, trying to get her to answer a couple of questions, walking backwards. And this big behemoth of a bodyguard set up a pic that Dennis Rodman would have been proud of for the former Chicago Bulls. And then the older man with the microphone walking backwards, bumps into the guy, and then they physically arrest the guy for running into them. And I went, holy shit. And then when they saw the footage, they got scared and they dropped the charges. That's the cowards that these pieces of shit are. That's the cowards. That's how bullies back down. When confronted, when he got back to the station and they said, this is everywhere, then they dropped the charges against the guy. But I've seen him on TV running the footage. I've seen him on Rob Schmidt's show the other night on Newsmax, and he is milking this thing, and rightfully so, the reporter, who's obviously been around. He's been around.
Good. I mean, the whole point is to make cops timid for the next journalist, because the guy was obviously doing journalism. Mm-hmm. If you're walking with a microphone and you're not, if he just shoved it in her face, he didn't. He's walking and holding it there.
Oh, have you seen it?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's dude, it's brutal. But don't worry, Mark. They're investigating. Yeah.
Oh my God, what's going on up there is just unbelievable. It really is. I mean, these people are going to start fleeing in reverse, like when draft dodgers were going to Canada during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, no kidding. Kind of like Russia's looking more American.
It's Korea. I just love you. Okay, somebody loves us in Korea. I mean, Scotland.
No, that was earlier. The super chat ran out and it said Korea, and she said, it's just Korea. I love you.
Wait, so she lives in Korea?
I think so. She's going to send her daughter to meet us at the meetup when we have the meetup.
Oh, well, put a body cam on your daughter, and then you can follow it at home in Seoul. I have gotten addicted to these glamping videos. Most of them are Koreans, by the way. These, not that I'm going glamping, but they have these videos, Japanese and Koreans, and she knows what I'm talking about, with luxury camping with inflatable giant tents that they load in inflatable couches, LG flat screen TVs, gourmet cooking and in the middle of the snowstorm. They're not just out in the field somewhere. They're in the middle of the woods in a snowstorm with these super duper expensive camping supplies. And I was just getting a massive erection watching all of these shows one after another. And I may have to invest some money into some of these products, because holy crap. I mean, this level of camping is something I've never seen before. And apparently the Koreans and the Japanese are really into it.
If you want me to join you camping, I might consider it with that.
Wow. If I get this equipment, I mean, I was looking, and I just said, I got to update my supplies, because this stuff is, whoa, off the charts, really sexy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's the only way I'd consider camping, to where it
Yeah.
doesn't resemble a camp.
Well, when they had a 27-inch LG fold-out TV screen in the tent, and a water fountain and a wood stove, I was like, holy crap, this is just a whole new level now. I got to up my game.
Well, Kiki Ray's saying, just buy it with your book fund. I think you're
Yeah.
going to be a little
Yeah.
short.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little short. I mean, the tent itself is like $1,300. The tent was $2,200. So.
Oh God. Okay.
Well, I do want to get that router though. That was why I sent you the thing about the.
Well, there's two of them. I sent you another one back because you may not be able to plug it in. The one you sent needs AC, so you got to plug it in a wall somewhere, like in an RV.
Right,
but I sent you another one that's battery, has 10 hours at a
all right, that's the one I got to get then. I got to get
anyway.
it. Yeah.
But definitely a good idea. Trey Ellswick, you guys and Willie Nelson personify America.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I'm wearing a hat. I'm going to go full Willie. I'm doing the full Willie.
Yeah, and we appreciate irony. The guy who has hair wears the hat.
It's not about hair. It's a great hat. I don't care about the hair. What difference does it make?
All right, Pasha Moyer. Here's more monetization from snowy Minnesota. Keep up fighting the fight. Yeah, my brother-in-law is in Montana, and I guess they have to shut down the restaurant he works in because it's -40 with wind chill.
-40.
Yeah.
I mean, as Pasha knows, I mean, I've had a number of relationships with women from Minnesota, some colder than others. But you have to plug in your car to the lamppost before you go to bed to keep your oil pan warm. People who are from other states may not understand that, but in Minnesota and other states there, you got to plug in your car, not for charging, but to keep your oil pan from keeping that warm into the lamppost outside your house.
Right. And by the way, folks, -40 has one unique feature. It is where Fahrenheit and Celsius line up.
Is that true?
Yeah, both Fahrenheit and Celsius, -40 is the same. So,
dude, imagine your Amazon delivery guy. They had a thing in Canada yesterday. Those Ring doorbells that you've been talking about were filming the porch pirates stealing the things, and they were posting the porch pirates online. And the Canadian fascist mounted police warned them if they do that, they will be arrested for violating the block heater. Thank you. Sorry, Rose. Thank you. You will be arrested for violating the privacy of a porch pirate if you post. I swear to God, this was yesterday at a Canadian mounted police threatened the homeowners. If they continue to post the robberies of themselves from their Ring cams, they will be arrested because the criminals have the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty.
That's amazing.
That
reminds me of the whole criminal breaking into a house and injuring themselves and suing the homeowner because they got injured. It's ludicrous stuff. That's how you can't make this shit up.
You can't make this shit up. And Canada is apparently the canary in the coal mine for all the stuff that we're doing. So they're watching closely what can be gotten away with up north. So it may be coming to a neighborhood near you.
Well, my answer is the Canadian people tend to be very nice, tolerant people. So please don't be nice. Don't be tolerant. Because this is
what Jason and I were talking about was these vending machines that were set up in Vancouver, British Columbia, which had syringes and Vicodin and drugs and different toiletries related to drug use back, I think, about 10 years ago. But he's saying now it's spread through the U.S. I saw one in Philadelphia. There's one in other cities as well. And Narcan is in there and stuff like that.
Wow. Amazing.
We got to get to the story about the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, and Amaryllis Fox.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, the letter I sent you and all that stuff. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
Oh, no. Yeah, completely. I got to find the link. Okay, so let's start talking about while I find the.
Okay, so dig this. Apparently, the FEC sent a really harsh, criminally related letter to the Robert Kennedy Jr. campaign regarding the ex-CIA, or maybe not ex-CIA agent Amaryllis Fox, who happens to be his relative and they cited laws regarding campaign contributions going to your relatives, her being his daughter-in-law, folks. The FEC, whether this is politically motivated by the Biden administration, I don't know. It could very well be, but they are going after him, and they want the receipts of her paychecks regarding how she's being paid. Now, her family on the other side, because the mother, as we did in the episode, if you want to look at the Amaryllis Fox episode, her stepfather is a trillionaire. So I don't know if this is going to really infringe upon her money earning, but they are demanding all of the records of her payments pre and post Dennis Kucinich, who has yet to respond to Rich Barris's request for an interview as to why he left the RFK campaign. The only response is from her herself regarding Dennis Kucinich leaving the RFK campaign. He was paid money. I'm sure they want to see those records. This is a direct attack against the RFK campaign, which has now gotten on the ballot of Utah. They're on the big board. Tell them what they've won, Bob. Here's the article right here. RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign questioned, not questioned. Well, I guess it is.
No, they have time to respond. I got the date. I just had it up. What's the date on that? February 13th. So
Okay.
Day before Valentine's Day. You have
Right.
almost till Valentine's Day to respond.
Okay. But I mean, it's obviously a frontal assault on his campaign to see those records and to see how it goes back, ironically, to the Kennedy family who ran each other's campaigns. That's where this comes from. Ted Kennedy ran Robert Kennedy, his father's campaign. Robert Kennedy ran John Kennedy's campaign, and the money got smushed together. And I think this is where this originally comes from regarding the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. Historically, at least, there may be more precedents. I'm not really sure.
I wonder if Barnes is going to work on this since he's doing ballot things. This is FEC. They would seem to be possibly tied together. So maybe we'll learn more.
We'll learn more about it on Sunday, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody check out Viva and Barnes, and Barnes may talk about this because I definitely want to know. Al Gonzalez said maybe Hunter Biden can paint the ceiling of the rooms at the Lorenzo Hotel.
That's funny. I mean, he could just there was that paintbrush and did you have that in your room? The paintbrush and frame above the bed? Was that like
I think it was every room. That was a weird one.
Okay.
And the Pixar lamp that was like
that giant, right, that Pixar lamp, that huge lamp. Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. But yeah, I mean, Hunter Biden obviously lives here in Malibu, local resident, great painter, the great artist. He's probably working on a piece right now.
I'm sure he might be watching it. Maybe it's of us, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he shares our politics.
By the way, there's a lot. What does this say? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For super chats, can we pay with Hunter Biden art?
It's like crypto. It's like dipto. It's like crypto dipto. The apparently now everybody coming out saying they knew that Matthew Perry was loaded, including the producer of Friends when she did the reunion. Now they're going the other way. They all knew that he was loaded all the time. They're all trying to cover their ass now because they're all on the phone with each other saying we got to put a spin on this. We're beginning to look like schmucks. He showed up for the Friends reunion loaded on opiates, and he told them he just had dental surgery, and they bought into it or didn't buy into it. Instead of saying we're not taking the money anymore, they continue to spin, saying, what could we do? He showed up loaded, and we did the best we could. Nobody will ever drive a stake into celebrity addiction and just say, you're not working anymore, bro. This is the producer of Friends today saying, and then some of the girls around him were now reporting a lot of violent outbreaks by him against them. So chickens are coming home to roost. The fact before the autopsy, he was totally sober. After the autopsy, we all knew he was totally loaded.
Wow, it's just sad. I mean,
yeah.
Andrew Ho, Hunter is shooting a documentary. That's why they had the 4K cameras there. Yeah. He doesn't want to go behind closed doors, not because of the surgery issues, but he wouldn't be able to film it, or he would be able to film it.
I don't know about the filming, but he's agreed to go behind closed doors, so it's a fait accompli. He's agreed to I read the letter from his lawyer, so he's agreed to honor the subpoena and go behind closed doors.
Okay, for a second, when he talked about surgery, I thought it was I thought the surgery was already done because you remember you've seen the shots with Hunter in the meth mouth, right?
The meth mouth. What was he doing?
Oh, Hunter Biden had the really bad meth mouth. His teeth all
Oh, yeah,
right.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody does, not just him. I mean, all those meth people do.
Right. Well, he had surgery and got his teeth implanted and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
You know, and
Let
look.
me tell you something. Meth has been one of the biggest booms to dentistry in American history. It is real, and there's different agencies, NGOs, that'll just help meth addicts get their teeth fixed, and then there's just the sheer monetary gain by dentists who are doing stuff on high-end clients like Hunter Biden. So, I mean, the dental industry may be involved with the meth industry on some level. You know, there was once a rundown tire shop on my street on Amsterdam Avenue between 83rd and 84th. Really, you know, one of these like bodega type tire places, you know, garages in a storefront kind of a thing. And once a year, this guy would send his son out on 84th Street to slash every single tire on both sides of the street. And then the line would start of people having to buy tires from his store for that particular day. And nobody ever put the dots together that the kid was slashing the tires to sell tires in one annual day a year. And I lived there a long time, so I saw it every year that it was almost the same day of the year that they would slash the tires on every car. And that was like literally between Amsterdam and Columbus, they would slash one tire or two on every car parked, and they would be lined up down the street buying tires from this guy.
Oh my God. Caravan said, who thinks Hunter dies of an overdose between now and the deposition?
That's never going to happen. It's very hard to overdose on crack. But when he was leaving the conference, when he was leaving the committee hearing yesterday, the reporters were hysterical. They were just going, Mr. Biden, what type of crack do you use? Do you snort it? Do you smoke it? I mean, there was just random questions about crack that were hysterically funny.
Oh, okay. Andrew Ho said it was perjury. Sorry, there was an autocorrect. Okay, that makes sense because he said surgery before he meant that couldn't be cameras back there because of the perjury and recording, but it said surgery. So Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks.
By the way, what causes meth mouth? I'm not trying to be stupid. What causes that?
Okay, so the meth itself erodes causes gum disease and erodes the teeth rather quickly, and you begin to get gum disease. And to be short and blunt about this thing, the gum disease, and then the teeth fall out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dom Majuri Cipolla, off topic, but what do you guys think of Marshall McLuhan? Maybe do a show on him?
Not worth it. I mean, Marshall McLuhan famously shows up in a Woody Allen movie when he's waiting online with Diane Keaton to go into a movie theater, and some guy online starts talking about Marshall McLuhan's theories, and Woody Allen turns to her and says, "This guy's full of shit. He doesn't know anything about it." And from behind the sign, he pulls out Marshall McLuhan. And Woody looks at the camera going, "Wouldn't it be great if life was this simple?" And Marshall McLuhan says to the guy, "You don't know anything about my theories. You're a complete fraud." That's my take on Marshall McLuhan.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. And by the way, locals on the spot, they've got our back. Anybody who wants to close their eyes now, there's Hunter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have to extract those or file them down and then cap them all or pull them out and give you, implants, like 30 implants, all the way across the board there. But yeah, that's one of the side effects of smoking meth.
And I like the comment that they had on locals too, saying, who takes a selfie like that?
Well, usually the dentist, so he could do a before and after, promote other people to come into his office. So, I mean, I'm sure it's not him. I think
I did the son of the president.
Well, no, he doesn't have to say son of president. There's a bunch of these on websites when you do cosmetic dentistry. They try to show you the most horrific before and the greatest after. That's probably what that's from. But who knows? Maybe it's his documentary. Who knows?
UWI IGH Hunter Mountain 1980 also did the accident reports at Vernon Valley on the Solomons and others. Skied on mushrooms the day I chugged. Haha. Okay.
Okay. Now I understand. I don't know about Vernon Valley, but I understand doing the accident reports because I did them at Hunter Mountain myself, and that was a lot of fun. I didn't do it on mushrooms, but I did it on some other substances. 1980. I was there before that, but around that time, yeah.
And continuing, you would probably refer to me as a Jersey ass.
The actual phrase is New Jersey asshole. So I don't know what Jersey ass means. Really, the typical phrase is either Long Island asshole or Jersey asshole. So just to be more specific in terminology, I don't know what Jersey
You cut
ass.
it too short.
Yeah, you needed a hole. You needed the hole at the end, bro. You needed the hole.
We never want to cut that short.
Yeah, you don't want to cut that. That's the actual word. Jersey asshole. Yeah. I mean, it just comes easily off the tongue. Jersey, he's a Jersey asshole. You could say asshole from New Jersey, but you shorten it the other way.
All right. Well, I've got one more story here to close out on YouTube. Speaking of assholes, how about a famous asshole, Barbara Streisand?
There's a lot of these stories from back in the day. I'm surprised it took this long for this one to come out. Remember, at the end of COVID, there was a whole mess of these. It is a small business in a way, so I don't know. She legally may have been entitled to that as a small business, regardless.
I think technically she could probably get away with it, legally, but I mean, give me a break. I mean, her estate isn't exactly open. What is she selling tickets? Hey, we're doing a estate tour, so my gardening crew has to get paid.
No, but I'm saying that it's part of her staff. I mean, it could be any part of her staff or a corporation that is a small business. I mean, I don't know how many people she has working there, but I'm sure she must have a head of development. She must have a little. First of all, it's a boutique company that just revolves around her.
Mm-hmm. I get that, but the payments went to her gardening crew. All the people.
Yeah, but that's her taking the payments, I think, and paying the garden. Yeah. I don't think Jose got a direct COVID payment. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Oh, I know that.
Maybe COVID did pay him directly. What do I know?
All right, and let me see. Marty Smith Van Sue, lack of saliva also in meth users contributes to tooth decay.
Okay, takes one to know one. Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Ouch. Be nice.
Ouch.
One of our regulars. Mark's in us. Give
me a break.
All right. Well, on that, Oswald says it's time for us to go to locals.
Okay, I'm down for that. I got some good stories when we get over to locals. I didn't use them all up here. I got a couple other ones I want to get into about vice presidential candidates. What I did yesterday on Greg's show, which I was alluding to with Jason. I'll talk about that more on locals. You people here are never going to learn about it because you're stuck on YouTube. But if you came over to locals, you're going to hear this look into the window of vice presidential choices for Donald Trump.
And not only that, you can come over for free. Unstructured.
Yeah, it's not a monetary thing. It's just some people are too lazy to come over.
Yeah, you can come over. It's free to be a member on locals. You can support us while you're there if you'd like. And if you just hate locals and you hate doing that, but you do still want to support, Mark has a PayPal, a Venmo, a Cash App. I have a PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. All of these links are in the description. There's merch available, not only stuff like Oswald and T-shirts, but we have the Kennedy cards, and there's a link there below to get the JFK assassination cards. I hope you consider that. But for those of you going to locals, we'll see you momentarily.
Okay.